So it's the year 2021, and we have a new political position within our political hierarchy, and that is the Doctator, the person who currently sits at top of all the pyramids. It's Dr. Tam in Canada, Anthony Fauci in the States. You know your province or state's Doctator as well. Some cities have them. And we've essentially granted supreme authority to these doctors for science, and they spout the science. They pray to the sun, and whatever the sun and science god does. I mean, they dissect the entrails of the goat and they put them out there, and that's what the science says about COVID. And we all must believe this blindly, because if we didn't, we'd be like no better than religious lunatics. So we've put the Doctators in charge, and there's a few problems with this. One, doctors don't essentially make great politicians or leaders if they're unprepared for it. It's not the same skill set, okay? Doctors are good at a lot of things, but they're not good at being supreme leaders. I know this. I have doctors in my family. Love them. Hardworking, empathic, mother, father, brother, sister-in-law, uncle, right? Fast-talking Jewish conservative commentator with doctors in the family. Who would have thought? Breaking stereotypes. Smashing them. But there's flaws in putting the doctor in charge, because they often don't understand political dynamics. They understand medicine. They don't understand sort of economic effects of decisions made down the road. And you saw this right everywhere. That's why we got to keep the lockdowns, right? Doctors are minimizing the deaths based on the COVID access. However, they do not understand that the lockdown measures you've put on have created these sort of long-term effects down the road, which more people might end up dying or suffering due to the consequences of a year to flatten the curve in lockdown, right? Than had we sort of managed this more like the Ron DeSantis model in Florida, where you sort of protect the nursing homes, keep them isolated, but let everyone sort of live their lives. He got slammed by this in the media, but he's on the left-hand side of the deaths in COVID, and he has the oldest population in the state. So he was right. Now we have another problem, which is these Doctators are not trustworthy, right? So it would be one thing if they were just doctors and suffered the normal the normal human flaws that tend to be present in the medical community. However, the doctors we have in charge in the States and in Canada are political hacks. Anthony Fauci was clearly a Democratic political hack. He has sort of lied and obfuscated to help Biden and Harris, whereas he would always badger Trump on little things. There is no argument to be made that Anthony Fauci is politically neutral. Now, I'm not saying he's doesn't know anything about medicine, but it is quite clear to most people that he has political bias, and he's being presented as objective. And this is, fraying the social discourse, to say the least. We have an even worse situation here in Canada, because our Doctator, Dr. Tam, is basically a propagandist on behalf of the Chinese government. Now, here's the disconnect a lot of people see, is if you only want CBC and you fed the mainstream media narrative, right, it's just, we must listen to Dr. Tam. Oh my God, she's so great. And she faces lots of racism. People are racist. And it's like, no, there's an actual problem. We now have access to information records, where she signed a pledge to the WHO to keep their secrets on the topic of COVID. And this is the person leading the charge in Canada. And we do know that the WHO is completely in the pocket of the Chinese government. And we know the Chinese government is one of the most evil things on the planet right now. So we have a problem here, where we are expected to obey a supreme authority. We're expected to obey this person. And not only does she possess the sort of standard medical flaws, the ability to not sort of see the economic and social effects of their policy, only sort of be tunnel-visioned on the medicine, which after a year is definitely coming into play, right? We also have the fact that she's a corrupt potential traitor and has been pushing Chinese propaganda, knowingly pushing Chinese propaganda, and has hampered the ability for Canada to properly brace for this pandemic. And when I say, embrace Chinese propaganda, back in the time when, Derek Sloan was being called a racist because he had brought this up, I had made the point that, okay, well, we're taking China's numbers, which are clearly a lie, and we're using them as the numbers that we are putting the modeling on and making decisions on in our country at the time. And I challenged Dr. Tam and anyone calling them racist at the point for saying, hey, Dr. Tam's just swallowing everything the WHO and the Chinese are putting up as numbers, and we know these are false because the Chinese at the time, and this is almost a year ago, 10, 11 months ago, at the time, the Chinese had said no more COVID cases. They capped their COVID cases around 81 to 83,000 for months. For months, no new cases of coronavirus in China, months and months and months before the vaccine was out. Did anyone believe this? Did anyone really believe this? No one actually believed that. We all knew the Chinese, okay, yeah, they're lying. But those are the numbers we were using. Yet to insinuate that Dr. Tam was using false numbers that benefited the Chinese propaganda machine, whoa. Terrible. Okay. So the question is not, will we ever give up power? Will we have a Julius Caesar happening where the dictator is supposed to give up power when the crisis passes? Or will we not give up power when the crisis passes? It is most obviously 99% chance that it is the latter, that a massive power grab is coming. And the interesting thing is, who will make the power grab? Will it be, the Justin Trudeaus and the Joe Bidens who use the offices of the medical doctator as a means to make a power grab and sort of push an ideological left, make sure there's an ideological calling? I think that's the most likely way. Will there be a power grab by a Fauci or a Tam themselves to sort of, say, we need a position which is the Doctator for life, the chief medical officer, which can have vetoes on policies if they're unhealthy for the population, right? Create some sort of new draconian thing, push COVID back, all that is, we're worried about a new variant. There could be a new variant coming out of, Istanbul. Ooh, the Turkish variant. Can't say Turkey because that's racist towards Turkish people, and then we can have this conversation forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And then my brain will melt because it is a stupid conversation. So you have Anthony Fauci in the States, who has been basically a Democratic political operative. He's being presented as science, the priest of science, because everything Fauci says is science and must be believed as such. And if you don't believe exactly what Fauci says, you're no better than a religious lunatic who would just believe whatever the Pope says. How stupid are you? Same way with Dr. Theresa Tam in Canada. Not only are you an idiot for disbelieving Dr. Tam, you're also apparently a racist, even though we do know she was pledged to support the Chinese over Canada. Our government knew, had designed spin strategies to get around it. So, when will we wake up and say, you know what, it's been enough. The Doctators failed. We have failed in Canada. We don't have the ability to... No, the Doctator, Theresa Tam, couldn't tell the government that we needed domestic manufacturing capabilities for the vaccine. And I know people who've tried to develop vaccines in Canada and got no support from the government. How's that not a failure? How's the fact that Justin Trudeau gave a respirator contract to one of his buddies who just started a friggin' respirator company like a week earlier? Overpaid by $100 million. How's that not a scandal? How did the Doctators stop that? Because the problem is, these Doctators are political hacks who've been given supreme authority power, and then that authority is going to be folded into the branch of the executive within the next year, and we all know it. And the fact that that this is the new normal, I guess, is terrifying. So how do we get around the Doctators? How do we stop them? Honestly, if I knew, I would have done it already. But what we should really do is call them what they are. They're Doctators. And this is the position they hold, and they should not have unlimited authority to set public policy, because that's not how it works. And clearly, they have failed at it.